Okay, now I have this book. It's called Inclusive Design for a Digital World, Designing with Accessibility in Mind. And you might see that it's a little worn. It's a lot of pages folded back. This is a very practical, very wise, and very well-researched book. It was written by our keynote speaker, Regine Gilbert. It's amazing to me that Regine is here, but of course she's here. She belongs at AccessU. She is an author of that book. She is a researcher, which is so clear in the way that she talks about our issues and our challenges in this book. The research is very human-centered, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. And I discovered Regine in a webinar that was done by, what was the group? It was, now I can't remember the group that produced it, but it was people of color in accessibility. And she was one of the speakers. And what impressed me so much was the way that she approached these really complex issues and barriers with such a sense of joy and optimism. It was like, yes, that's my kind of girl. I just loved the way she approached it and talked about it. When I asked her to be the keynote, she very graciously said yes. And then about 2 weeks or so later, I see Regine in another meeting at the Teach Access, the group of advisors for Teach Access. And I was like, of course she's here. It was just wonderful. So Regine is an author. She's a researcher. She's a teacher. She's a mentor. We recently hired a new marketing director, Mariella Paulino. And when I said, oh, Regine's going to be our keynote speaker, she said, really? Regine is a mentor to me. So she's such an active community member. It's all the things that I see that she does reflects this strong belief she has in making the world a more accessible place. That includes the emerging worlds of XR and AI, which she's going to talk about today. So here, with no further ado, is Regine Gilbert to talk about moving from awareness to action, XR opportunities. Welcome, Regine.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharon. I just want to thank you, Sharon, from the bottom of my heart. I have followed your work for many years, and I have the utmost respect for you and everything you do. And thank you to everyone here at Knowability, all the organizers and all the tech support who helped me before, and all the captioners. Thank you all so much. I am very excited to be here. Also, honestly, very nervous because typically when I speak to people who may not know a lot about accessibility, and here I am speaking to people who know a lot about accessibility. But I'm hoping that you learn something new today, and I will share my screen so we can get started. All right, is it up and good? All right, so today I'm going to talk about moving from awareness to action, XR opportunities. I am Regine Gilbert, a designer, educator, and author. So I just wanted to do a quick agenda because I think it's nice to have them, and why not? I'm going to talk about what is XR, my interest in XR, what's happening in accessibility in XR, some organizations, and briefly touch on some equitable futures and what that means for us. So extended reality, XR, is a term referring to all real and virtual combined environments and human-machine interactions generated by computer technology and wearables, where the X represents a variable for any current or future spatial computing technologies. This is from Wikipedia. It is, the general XR definition, and I'll have my own as I'll go through and share with you. So virtual reality, I have an image here of a person wearing a head-mounted display. So this is something that they're wearing over their head and covering their eyes. So virtual reality, often called VR, is for computer. It's the computer technology. Sorry, I have to move this here 1 second. Is the name for computer technology that makes a person feel like they're somewhere else. It uses software to produce images, sounds, and other sensations to create a different place so that a user feels like he or she or they is really part of this other place. That other place can be real. You could take a tour to another city or play a game. Yet, according to Pablo Cardenas, 97.81% of the world hasn't tried VR yet. So we have a chat here that we can utilize, I believe. Who here has tried VR, virtual reality? Anyone? Yeah? Okay, so I'm seeing a bunch of yeses. Okay, all right. So you all maybe not be part, a few no's here. Makes me dizzy? Yes, I see that. No, I'm seeing quite a few no's. Okay. This is good to know. Thank you all for sharing. So 97.81% of the world has not even tried VR. Then there's augmented reality. Augmented reality, often known as AR, is a computer technology that shows digital images on top of the current real world. For example, it can show a digital table on top of a floor. It is different from virtual reality, which makes a person feel as if they're somewhere else. So I have an image here of the Sephora app. The person has turned on their camera to look at their self and is given 10 options for lip colors. The app applies a digital overlay to their face, to the lips specifically, and puts one of those colors that the user chooses on their lips. Then there is mixed reality. So mixed reality is a blend of physical and digital worlds, unlocking the links between human, computer, and environment interaction. I have an image here of people sitting in a simulated cockpit wearing a HMD, which is a head-mounted display, while flying a plane. So they have it's as if they're feeling everything. And it's a mixed reality. They're feeling the real world, but they're also seeing things virtually. And then there's spatial audio. So spatial audio is any audio which gives you a sense of space beyond conventional stereo, allowing the user to pinpoint where sound is coming from. I have an image here of a person holding an iPad surrounded by 5 speakers, 1 in front, 2 on the sides, and 2 at the back of their head. So the sound could be coming from any of those areas, and spatial audio allows for you to feel where that sound or hear where that sound is coming from. So I saw that Claire mentioned Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, do I have any Pokemon Go players here? Yes. Just one? Okay, son. I recall my first time experiencing Pokemon Go. It wasn't me playing. I was on 5th Avenue in New York City. I saw a very large group of people running very fast. And my immediate thought was, something is wrong. But they were running with joy in their hearts. And there were some people who weren't running. They were just walking. So I asked them, what is going on? And they said, oh, Pokemon. I had no idea what that meant. But that was the summer, I believe, of 2016, where people were really, really into Pokemon, and in New York City, it was a very popular thing to do. So last year, I was starting to think about augmented reality and accessibility, and I have the pleasure of co-teaching an assistive technology course with Gus Chalkias, and Gus is blind. And I was mentioning Pokemon to Gus, and he said, let me just, for those who are not familiar with Pokemon, so Pokemon Go is a free smartphone app that combines gaming with the real world. The game uses location tracking and mapping technology to create an augmented reality where players catch and train Pokemon characters in real locations. It is a highly visual experience. And this is the character Snorlax. I have a screenshot of the character Snorlax is standing on green grass in front of a red and white ball. And for those who play, you would flick that and try to get the character. So let me go back for a minute. I was talking to Gus about Pokemon Go. Gus he is blind, and he was saying, I wish I could play Pokemon Go. And it made me think, why can't he play? And so Gus and I partnered for my summer class, and Gus became my student's client. And what ended up happening, so last summer, my students worked with my colleague who is blind. They wanted to play something similar to Pokemon Go, and the students were able to work with others to create augmented reality concepts that were specifically for the blind. They were not only working with Gus, they were working with others, which ended up being really, really cool. So what came out of that, some key insights, were that they realized that it didn't have to be all visual, right? There could be a rich audio slash visual, and sound for clear cues. There would need to be a training mode so people understand what to do. Attractive storylines are really, that's what life's all about, are our stories, right? Connection with others, connection with other players. Haptic feedback, so vibrations with the mobile device, haptic feedback to avoid audio overload, and providing description and video in the App Store and not just showing images is an option. So these are some key insights learned from last summer's kind of experiment of, hey, how might we make Pokemon Go a little more accessible? The truth is, accessibility has been missing in action when it comes to the XR space. Currently, XR is being used in the following areas: artificial intelligence. We all know, and if you don't know, then you should definitely look into artificial intelligence and bias. Oftentimes, there are a lot of missing voices because artificial intelligence is based off of society, and we know that society is broken. XR is also being used for assistive technologies in business, in retail, communication, education, empathy. There are things that some people may agree with in terms of empathy and disagree with in terms of empathy. Entertainment, recreation, events, gaming, health, rehabilitation, meetings, navigation, therapy, training, video programming, virtual assistants, and wayfinding. Because XR is being used in all of these areas, I feel that it's important that we have an understanding of what's going on, because this impacts our lives on a day-to-day, and maybe it's not happening today, but it certainly will in the future. So some things to consider in the XR space are things being created without visuals, without sound, for one-handed experience, for no-handed experience, for seated, standing, with voice, without voice, switch. There's a lot of opportunities in this area in regards to communication, customization, avatars, navigation, and interfaces. One of the things that I'm going to be doing over the summer is I am looking specifically at virtual reality and design patterns. And part of my research is looking at design patterns and the gaps that are happening with inclusion and accessibility. There's a lot of different experiences out there, and I don't know what I don't know at this point. So I'm going to spend the summer, and hopefully I will have something to share with you all in the near future about that. So in 2017, Alice Wong, whom I don't know personally, but I have so much respect for, a disability activist and founder of the Disability Visibility Project, found research conducted in partnership with Lucasfilm's Immersive Entertainment Studio that people with a variety of disabilities, from blindness to cerebral palsy to autism, enjoy using VR and believe it could be beneficial, but experience major accessibility issues. The inability to customize experience and the necessity of moving certain parts of the body were two of the biggest issues raised by survey respondents. So my question to you all is, why? Why might this be happening? Any ideas? Please let me know in the chat. I like for things to be interactive. So Glenda says lack of design. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you wanted us to unmute or if you wanted us to type at you.
Oh, whatever works for you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of really great guesses. So Glenda says lack of design with people of different abilities. Lainey says disabled people aren't building the tools. Carla says accessibility was not baked in. Rhiannon says not involving people with disabilities in testing. Seda says lack of knowledge. And I'm just going to read these really quick.
Yeah.
No disabled in design group. Experiences with XR were not designed with disabled people. Lack of actual people. Lack of incorporation of people with disabilities. Oh, Seda says lack of empathy. And there's a lot of other things. I want to call out what Christopher says. Monetary constraints. So a lot of really, really great feedback in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you all for this. I mean, I'm assuming that a lot of these are the reasons why this continues to happen, right? We see this repeatedly. I was thinking about this the other day, that history is our greatest teacher, and yet we never learn from it, right? And so how can we make things different for the future? Thank you all for those answers. So Ian Hamilton, who some of you may know, is an advocate for accessibility, especially in the gaming world, said thinking about accessibility equals inspiration. Thinking about accessibility late equals remediation. And I think this is so true. And we are at a point in time where we have an opportunity to get on board with XR early, right? It's not a new technology at all. However, it is rapidly getting more entwined into our day-to-day lives. So yeah, it is an awesome quote. So there's some accessible XR I'd like to discuss with you all. There is Walk-in VR. Walk-in VR is available on Steam, and it's adapting VR games for people with disabilities. Walk-in VR has been tested to make VR accessible for people with cerebral palsy, spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, muscular dystrophies, spinal muscular atrophies, neuropathy, and orthopedic problems. I have an image here of the Walk-in VR's logo, which has a person in a wheelchair holding controllers in each hand with arms spread wide. There's Spatial XR, which has live captions. This was a tweet just from a few days ago. Spatial XR specializes in virtual meetings, and they've recently added captions to these virtual meetings. 2020 has 2020'd us, right? We have all changed so much because of it, and everything, including this conference that we're in now, is virtual. And so Spatial XR is now using live translation. I saw the captions. I personally don't like the way that they do them. However, the fact that they have them is a step, and I think as they grow, things will improve. There is Mozilla Hubs. Is anyone here familiar with Mozilla Hubs? Yes? Okay, a few of you are. No? Okay. For those of you who said no earlier to saying that you have not virtual reality, I would highly recommend that you go to Mozilla Hubs, because Mozilla Hubs is it's virtual reality for the desktop. So I think that people assume that virtual reality, you have to put on a VR headset. However, there is web VR. And with web VR, Mozilla Hubs is really outstanding because they're very open. They're a web-based 3D environment, and they are open to recommendations around accessibility. Thank you, Glenda, for sharing. So those of you who have not tried Mozilla Hubs, I would highly recommend that you do so. A11Y VR, which was created by Thomas Logan, who is a friend and colleague, started this meetup for virtual reality in Mozilla Hubs, actually. And some past events were designing a participatory workshop with Indira Knight, haptics for XR with Eric Vizzoli and Tim Stutz, and ideas for for ally programming in XR tech companies with Bill Curtis Davidson. The W3C, which is a World Wide Web consortium, has created web content, the original web content accessibility guidelines, and is working on guidelines related to XR. They are still a work in progress, but I think it is a good start. There's XR Access, which is a community committed to making virtual, augmented, and mixed reality, XR, accessible to people with disabilities. I'm going to plug, I am part of XR Access. There is a symposium happening June 10th and 11th of this year. And if you are interested, there's still time to sign up. This is a great event if you're looking to learn about accessibility, whether you're a designer or developer, you just have a general interest, you might have an interest in policy. They are such a great group. I am biased because I'm part of it, but I do feel it's a wonderful group and such great learning opportunity. They also have really good resources on their website. And then there's PETE, the Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technologies. They created the Accessibility Playbook for Emerging Technology Initiatives, which is a blueprint for launching a successful initiative to drive the development of accessible emerging technologies. So I would really recommend checking out PETE and their accessibility playbook for emerging technology initiatives. And the XR Association has a developer guide that has some really good information if you're a developer. Not everybody is, but if you're interested even in development, the XR Association has a nice guide. And the Oculus, which is a head-mounted display created by Oculus, which is owned by Facebook, they recently, this year, came out with the Oculus Virtual Reality Check. So accessibility virtual reality checks focus on audio, visual, interactions, locomotion / movement, and other aspects of accessible design, ways to make your app more compelling to more people.
Regine,
yes.
we have a question from Claire in the audience. Are you willing to take it now, or do you want us to save till the end?
Let's take it now. Why not?
Awesome. Hey, Claire, would you like to unmute and ask your question out loud?
I can do that. I provided a pronunciation in case I wasn't going to do that.
No worries.
Hi, Regine. Hi, 142 people. So I've been involved in what I'm hesitant to call virtual reality since 88, 89. I mean, this was on BBSs and then internet and very early internet, the breathing end of Netscape, if y'all remember that way back in the day. This includes text-only virtual realities, such as MOOS, that's an acronym for mud, muck, and so on. There are a bunch of acronyms that start with MU. There are multi-user text-only experiences. And then there's what we used to call immersive 3D experiences like Second Life. And if you're in chat and have heard and have been on MOOS or Second Life, please say something. But this is Second Life back when it started, 2004, 2005. I've been there since, and it's well before Oculus or anything like it was sort of more than an exciting thought. It just uses, the monitor, keyboard, and mouse. And MOOS you don't even need a mouse. So now the definition you just shared with us seems actually weirdly to exclude those legacy VRs, if you will, because they're not requiring special equipment like goggles or gloves or sensors or anything. So what happened there? Where do these legacy forms of VR belong now definitionally, if you happen to know that? Thank you.
Oh, well, okay. When it comes to definitions, I feel very much that I can have my own definition and you can have your own definition, and then we as a community can kind of agree on something. At this point in time, the community has kind of agreed on XR. Although some people would say, I don't like XR. I don't think that should be the umbrella. It's just like with inclusive design, some people feel like, well, what does that mean? I mean, I could ask 5 people, they'll give me 5 different answers. What I would say, I would include these things into the XR space, because when you think about something like WebVR, for example, WebVR is something that you can do using a keyboard only, right? So that's how I would include it in XR.
So we can include it in XR, but at this point, maybe VR is an equipment-based definition. And I'm going to sound uneducated if I use VR to refer to these things, right?
No, I mean, well, what is a virtual reality?
It's, as you say, it's something that makes you feel like you're somewhere else.
Right.
Right. And okay, but you happen to have photographs, and okay, I got distracted then by useless details. I thought you were saying it is like it must include this equipment, this but it doesn't. It just
No,
has to
does
engage the mind. that way.
Correct. Correct.
Exciting. Okay, good. I feel
Okay.
less foolish now, and
You're not
yet
foolish.
more foolish
Listen,
because I said this in front of 200 people. Okay,
we
thank you very
should-
much, Regine.
we should all be more foolish, and we should all ask questions, and we should not be afraid to ask those questions.
Oh, good. Then I'm a
Okay.
role model for courage, right?
Yes, you are.
Thanks, guys. All right.
Thank you. So I want to talk next about moving from awareness to action. Now, I just gave you a mini lesson on what, XR is. It was small. But now that we know this, what do? I think we start small. We start with, what we can. We define what could be. I'm a big fan of looking at what is and thinking about what could be. That's what gets me up in the morning. That's my why. Get involved in groups or organizations and then celebrate the little wins. So this is a graphic, an image. I'll give an image description of this. It's a neon sign of XR City. There's in the background an opaque subway map with stops for free, game, VR, accessibility, and AR. So when I first got into this area of XR, I'm a user experience designer. And one of the things that I did when I was a freelance user experience designer was that I would do usability testing for augmented reality products because they were my neighbors and my co-working space. And then I went on to create courses for NYU's online program for user experience design and immersive technologies such as AR and VR. Last year, I wanted to start research on inclusive and accessible XR experiences. Now, I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I started thinking about what is inclusion and what does accessibility mean for the XR space. And as I started thinking more and more about this, I ended up creating a list. And it is a big one. It is a list of the most popular tools used for XR development. And I specifically looked for things that cost money and things that didn't, because I think that is a barrier to entry. I also looked at the programming languages and scripting languages used. I also looked to see if there was any accessibility associated with these tools. And I will tell you, I looked at over 60 tools, and approximately 4 of them have any sort of accessibility related anything. And that is in the form of their voluntary product accessibility, their VPATs, right? So this is where I started. I started small with the idea of like, what does it mean to have inclusive and accessible XR? I ended up creating a list. That list turned into one of my obsessions, which is subway maps. And I have created a subway map of XR tools and their uses. And I just wanted to give that as an example of I'm not a developer. I'm a designer. I'm a professor. I have an interest in this area, and I just did something small that turned into something a little bit bigger than I imagined. Everything is by design, right? Everything around us has been designed, even systems of inequality. This is from Antoinette Carroll, a person who is an equitable designer and someone who I have much respect for. I have taken a few pages from her Equitable Design workbook because I want to talk to you all about our opportunity. So when we think about creating a more equitable future, the question I ask is, how can we make sure that we are designing inclusive and equitable outcomes for all, no matter how big or small the decision? When it comes to equity-centered community design, the equity-centered community design created by the Creative Reaction Lab is a unique creative problem-solving process based on equity, humility building, integrating history and healing practices, addressing power dynamics, and co-creating with the community. Now, everyone here is obviously interested in accessibility, cares about it. And one of the things that I think we don't oftentimes talk about is the history that got us here today and how we heal from what's been done before and how to keep moving forward. And so when it comes to really like moving forward, especially in this XR space, how can we do it? How can we do it? How do we start, right? So this is an outline of the equitable design. So it starts with scenario. There's the history and healing, understanding the history of how things are where they are and healing. Acknowledging and dismantling power constructs, because that's oftentimes how we get to where we are in the first place. And then moving into inviting diverse co-creators to the process, building humility and empathy, defining and assessing topics and community needs, ideating different approaches, rapid prototyping, and testing and learning. And I think this, I've shared this as much as I possibly can with folks, because I think that when we go about addressing issues, we oftentimes just go to the scenario and then we build something, right? Or we fix it. But we don't oftentimes talk about the history and the healing and acknowledging and dismantling power constructs. So my recommendations to you all are to begin learning about the XR space and look into organizations such as A11Y VR, the W3C, XR Access, which again, the symposium is June 10th and 11th, and you can sign up, PETE, and the XR Association. When you do the things in the present that you can see, you are shaping the future that you are yet to see. We have an opportunity to get involved in this XR space. When Sharon asked me to speak to you all, I thought, I'm preaching to the choir. Everyone knows, everyone here knows the things to do. What is it that I can talk to folks about that maybe people can get involved in? And I said, I would love to see more folks in the disability community and the accessibility community involved in the XR space so that we can make things that are more equitable. So my last question to you all is, what will you do to make a more equitable future? And if you feel comfortable, please answer in the chat. I can tell you, I'm going to keep on telling people about to get into this space and get involved. Meryl, I've seen Meryl give feedback and suggestions about VR captions. Thank you, Meryl, for that. Jenny, commit a defined amount of time for learning, then share what I learned. That's awesome. Julie says, my son's watching me, and he thinks all of this is common sense, so I'm going to listen to him more often. Kids know. Claire says, I will keep telling people that ability falls on a, I don't know how to say that word. Claire, maybe you can say it.
Sorry, platycardic.
Okay.
Platycardic. It just means that when you think of a normalized bell curve, we design for the center of that bell curve, the column in the middle, but a platycardic curve is flattened. And if you add the far left and the far right areas together, you actually get a larger area than that center. So there's a fallacy of designing for a normalized bell curve out there. And I will always say, nope, it's not real. It's a myth. Ability does not fall on a normalized bell curve.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody?
I love Lainey and Julianne's submissions.
Oh, so Lainey says, big picture, I'll remember this Gandhi quote, the future depends on what you do today. Specific picture, I will include XR accessibility in my talks about civil rights of disabled people. Thanks, Lainey. Julianne, step 1, improve my understanding of accessibility and inclusion skills in as many realms as I can. Step 2, continue advocating and educating everyone. Thank you. Sharon, keep sharing knowledge with our teams on accessibility. Doug, I'm pushing the idea of embedded text in the metadata for all images, which applies to XR objects. And Mark, continuing to channel and challenge accessibility issues where I see it needed, and to continue to expand, to grow my knowledge and capabilities for myself. And Meryl says, always be learning and sharing the learnings. Yeah, never stop learning. I used to end talks with that. Never stop learning. Never. I mean, I'm learning something new every day. I don't know it all. I can admit when I am wrong. I think that is something we all can do. And to say I don't know is not a bad thing. It's bad if you don't go figure out why you don't know. But I am so intrigued into this area, and I hope that you all will get involved. And I will. That is all I had. Thank you so much. I am pretty active on Twitter at reg_inee, and please feel free to email me at rg1508@nyu.edu. And if anybody has interest in working with me or anything else, I would be happy to. Feel free to email me. I really, really am passionate. I am passionate about accessibility in general. It is my life's work. And I will continue to fight the good fight until I cannot fight anymore. So I really, really want to see us in this XR space, because I just think we have such knowledge that we can give to this space. And I want to thank you all thank you all for your time, and thank you, Sharon, for having me, and thank you to everyone at AccessU and the Knowability staff for putting on such a wonderful event.
Oh, Regine, thank you. I know you would be hearing thunderous applause if we were all
sweating
together.
So much, Sharon.
Thank you so much. It was just wonderful. And yeah, stick around. We'll be here for the next 3 days. Everybody's dropping in and out of the things that they love most. And I have to say, I didn't contribute to the chat about what I would do because I'm terrified of XR. So I think my thing is to just get over it, right? Just get over it and keep learning, which I will definitely try to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can listen. You can go into Mozilla Hub's alt space too, right? Like you can go into alt space. There are things you could do from your computer that you don't have to go put on a headset. I mean, I find it overwhelming sometimes. I mean, I it's funny. I was with Thomas in a room in VR, and I cannot move without feeling a little sick. I have to jump. If I jump, I'm good. But if I'm moving, it's very strange. So, you have to do what works for you.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good advice. I'll go in the kiddie pool for a while and then maybe be able to jump in all the way. Thanks so much, Regine. It was great having you here.
Thank
I
you all.
just look forward to more and more. Maybe next year in Austin, huh?
Yeah, I would love that.
I would too.
And thank you, Jillian, for you're such a hype person. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, Sharon said that like she was your biggest fangirl. I'm right behind, so if you ever need a hype woman, you know how to reach me.
Yes, yes. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day.
Awesome.